Skibbity, my Sigmas. Nope. Welcome back to another episode of Quirky Trumpet Player Tries to Justify His Master's Degree in Pedagogy. And on today's episode, we are looking at the Gen Z trend of mewing. And is mewing actually good for brass players? Now, if you are lucky and you haven't set foot in a public school in the past year and a half, then you probably haven't been exposed to the Brainrot. But just to test, let's see if any of these words trigger you. Skibbity toilet, Riz, Sigma, Gyat, Ohio, Baby Gronk. If any of those words made you laugh, for the love of Alan Tudyk, pick up a book, please. We have a media literacy crisis in this country, and you are part of the problem. In any event, brainrot vocabulary and memes have become a staple of the Gen Z lexicon. And while I would love to do a video on the history and evolution of all things memes, this is a Brass Quintet channel. Today it is the trend of mewing that has gotten my trumpet pedagogy brain very, very itchy. Now, when I first heard of the term mewing, I thought it would be some sort of a furry thing. And I'm happy to report that it's not. It's not a furry thing. I'm a music teacher. So I first learned about mewing through Teacher Talk, where a bunch of burnt-out public school teachers... Did I really write burnt-out public school teachers? That's just redundant. A bunch of public school teachers were complaining about students doing some gestures in class. And apparently the gesture goes something like this. By doing that gesture, you are signifying to your teacher that I'm not talking. I'm working on my jawline. And teachers hate it. We hate it. It's rude. But as a trumpet player who struggles with a lot of jaw problems, specifically TMJ, the fact that these kids are trying to work on their jawlines got me curious to at least figure out, what are they doing? Can you actually fix your jaw and your jawline without the help of a doctor? And what, if any, benefit can there be for us brass players in the art of mewing? Well, buckle up, because today we are going to break down the misconceptions and potential benefits of mewing. According to WebMD, and I will read from my script, mewing is a technique for flattening your tongue against the roof of your mouth that's supposed to change your jawline and face shape. Now, after reading this initial definition, it reminded me of some of the exercises that I did in my own physical therapy for my jaw. But we'll get to that later. This technique was developed by British orthodontist, which is an oxymoron, John Mew and his son, Michael Mew. John Mew started promoting this technique in the 1970s as an alternative to orthodontics known as orthotropics. And it's worth mentioning that the term mewing was not coined by John or Michael, but rather by the Gen Z movement online who was trying to use this technique to make their jawlines look better. It's also probably worth noting that in 2019, John Mew had his dental license revoked by Britain's General Dental Council, and the council also just so happened to hold a hearing in 2022 against Michael, who was then expelled from the British Orthodontic Society. So that doesn't sound so good for the legitimacy of mewing. But my conspiracy theory brain wants to believe that the practices of the mews pose an existential threat to big orthodontists. For you see, if people can simply fix their jaws without having to pay thousands of dollars for fancy appliances, then it would stand to reason that big orthodontists would lose millions and millions of dollars, and they use these councils to silence the mews and secure their profit margins. But hey, that's just a theory. A dental orthodontic theory? Matt Pat said anyone can be a theorist. Also, I just really haven't had time to do all the research into the topic. It's the summer gig season, and I've got program notes to write. Alright, so that's the basic history and a little bit of a conspiracy theory about mewing, but how does one mew? Step 1. Shut your mouth. Step 2. Find the point where your teeth meet the roof of your mouth and place the tip of your tongue there. Step 3. Suction your tongue up to the roof of your mouth. Your tongue should be flat and the tip should be right behind your upper teeth. And you are mewing. Practice holding this position for 10 to 30 seconds several times a day and you're on your way to mewing like a Sigma. No cap. Here comes the plot twist. After researching how to mew, I quickly realized that mewing has very little to do with defining your jawline and everything to do with proper tongue rest posture. Let's do an experiment. Check in on your tongue right now. Where is it resting? Is it thrust up on your teeth? Is it just floating nebulously in your oral cavity? Or is it suctioned up to the roof of your mouth as it would be if you were mewing? If your tongue is just kind of floating in your mouth, or worse, thrust forward and resting on your teeth, it's not actually resting properly. In an ideal rest position, your tip, middle, and back of your tongue should be held with suction to the roof of your mouth, leaving space between your upper and lower teeth, thus preventing you from clenching your jaw. Proper tongue rest posture not only has a massive impact on your dental and orofacial health, it also has an impact on your posture, your jaw pain, your neck pain, and even your breathing. Why do I know this? Because I used to have terrible tongue rest posture before I sought out orofacial myofunctional therapy. So how did I fix my tongue rest posture? Well, unlike mewing, which forces your tongue into position right off the bat, the approach I took with my therapist was more gradual to develop my mobility and strength in my tongue. We started with an exercise that we called the sticky spot. Essentially, we put a special piece of orthodontic wax right at that spot between my upper teeth and roof of my mouth. The idea of this exercise was for the tip of my tongue to find the ideal resting spot. This caused my tongue to stop resting on my teeth by giving it something tactile to kind of play with and latch onto. Over the course of about an hour, the wax would slowly melt and my tongue would gradually become comfortable finding this spot. After doing this exercise once a day for a few weeks, the next step was to develop my tongue's strength. To do this, I would perform an elastic band hold. In this exercise, I would place an orthodontic rubber band on the tip of my tongue and hold it where the sticky spot used to be. Behold! Here is my rubber band. I will now place it on the tip of my tongue. And then put behind my upper teeth. And just kind of close my mouth for a little bit. And I would do this every night for about 30 minutes, unwinding from a long day, watching TV. Until that was going well, and we decided to do a double elastic band hold. In this exercise, I put one on the tip of my tongue and one right behind it. This forces the middle of my tongue to start arching as well. Observe! One on the tip. One behind it. And up. And you hold that for half an hour once a day for several weeks, and before you know it, your tongue is getting very strong. Why am I doing an accent? The final ingredient to fixing my tongue rest posture was to work on my lingual palatal suction. This is basically the suction force that you need to keep your tongue up at the roof of your mouth. Now, we approached this in multiple different ways. The first thing we did was just tongue clicks. You've probably done them at some point. They look like this. Oh my god, what if what if the takeaway from this video is I need to work on my tongue rest posture, and a bunch of students are in class going, that would be so much worse than mewing. Basically, these tongue clicks help you to develop that sensation of what it's like to have your tongue suctioned up to the roof of your mouth. The next step in developing my lingual palatal suction was to do what we call a cave stretch. In this exercise, you get your tongue suctioned up to your roof of your mouth, you hang your jaw down, and hold that suction as long as you can. It looks something like this. Now, when you first get started doing your cave stretch, you might find either your left side or your right side of your tongue struggling to maintain that seal. That is a-okay. Look at where my tongue was when I started my therapy. Clearly, I don't know what side off the top of my head because I haven't put the graphic in yet, but clearly, one side of my tongue is on the struggle bus. But after working on my cave stretch and my palatal lingual suction over the course of almost a year, this is what my cave stretch looks like now. You know what? Let's just look at the before and after pictures of when I started therapy and where I was at the end of doing my therapy. When I started therapy, I had a lot of inflammation around my cheekbones and my jawline, which was super detrimental to my trumpet playing. But by the end of therapy, a year later, I've got less inflammation and a more defined muscular structure in my face. So you might be thinking to yourself, wow, this mewing thing is super powerful. I better start mewing right away. Hold on. No. No. Remember, mewing is just working on your tongue rest position. Mewing does not cause your jaw to grow. In fact, the only demographic of people where it is suggested that you mew to change the shape of your jaw is between the ages of 5 and 10 because their jaws aren't done growing yet. Changing your tongue rest position is not going to change the shape of your jaw or your jawline. The only way that you can change the shape of your jaw if you are past the age of, 10 years old, is through some kind of oral appliance. I know this because this was suggested as part of my treatment for my TMJ. But A, it's unaffordable, B, insurance won't cover it, and C, as a trumpet player, I don't want to change the shape of my jaw over the course of 2 years because that's going to mess with my oral cavity, which is super important to trumpet playing. So mewing, brass players, should we do it? Maybe. I found that actually changing my tongue position in my mouth helped me both navigate the registers of the horn by changing my vowel shape better. I could go from low to high easier with less effort coming from my chops. And while it took some getting used to, I found that once I had my tongue in a proper tongue rest position, my articulations became cleaner and maybe even a little bit faster too. It's worth mentioning that all of this is purely anecdotal. Well, outside of the physical evidence of my facial structure changing, as well as the demonstrable change in my range of motion. But again, I did not just mew for a year. There were so many other exercises that I worked on for a year to develop a better range of motion for my tongue and jaw and to develop my musculature. I guess what I'm trying to say is if you struggle with problems in your jaw or your tongue or really anything with your embouchure, you should consult with an orofacial myofunctional therapist and not some prime drinking iPad kid who spends their allowance on V-Bucks. Good night.